Hi, and I'm back with another layout from my Creating with Collections Easter kit. This is going to be layout number 16 and a little bit different than 15, where 15 I kind of went straight for all the small scraps, and this one I pulled out the larger scraps and tried to come up with a game plan. I did not really have like a sketched out plan in mind. I actually end up building most of the layout without even having the photos printed. I had a general idea of which photos I was going to go look for, but that wasn't really a high priority for me, mostly just because I know that depending on where the scraps kind of take me as far as page design, I can edit my photos around that and either do like a DIY photo collage or find a digital photo collage and just drop my photos in there and kind of work around that. So what I ended up doing was I just grabbed the large pieces that I had left. I pulled out the chipboard that I had left, which there was the hello phrase and then the letters that spell out spring. So I figured if I pair those together and I use them as a title, that would actually use up a good chunk of the chipboard. For some reason, I don't tend to pull chipboard. I don't know what it is, if it's just the fact that when you buy the chipboard pack, it's going to be those more specifically themed elements, like the wagon with the flowers and the kite and the water bucket with the flowers. And pretty much those were icons and images that I didn't use on the sticker sheet or the die cuts either. So again, it's just kind of a learning process as far as moving forward with this series. So I kind of know when I'm looking at a collection what specific things I need to sort of slow down and actually look at, and things that I'm learning that work for my specific process. And I have said this for years, do what works for you. The intention of my videos is purely entertainment, and if you find inspiration from that, that's awesome. I would hope that that inspiration doesn't need to be specific to my example. I just try to encourage you guys to grab whatever you have in your stash, and if you want to follow along, then do that. This I have mentioned before. I have no shame in cutting up die cuts to make them work for me. This one I had already cut off the other side of it on the Mother's Day layout, which was number 14. I decided to go ahead and just cut out the tree and just go ahead and decide that the rest of that die cut was kind of done. It served its purpose for me. Again, I'm just playing around with stuff, trying to figure out what is going to work. I had cut out 3 of these 2-inch circles from Nicole Jones in my previous layout, and I only used 2 of them because I cut them in half to be able to kind of spread them. So I still had this one kind of out on my desk, and I figured, you know what, I'll go ahead and get this used up as well. It's going to make a good base for this little tree. And I've kind of settled on this design of just having some strips of pattern paper with a little gap between them, a frame of the white cardstock around the edges of everything, and then I'm kind of just filling in the gaps with what I have. So there's a 3x4 card. I originally was planning on using the floral and like notebook paper 3x4 card to type my journaling on. And no shocker there, I actually forgot that that was my plan, and I ended up putting my journaling somewhere else. So I am going to end up just leaving that blank. Yes, it is a journaling spot. Yes, it has lines for that. But in this instance, for what is going to work for me, I chose to just kind of have it present itself as a piece of pattern paper. So pretty much the stuff that I had left, which was not surprising to me, was not necessarily my favorite patterns. Normally, cloud paper is like a top 5 for me. This one, however, I had almost half a sheet left just because I don't know what it was. I struggled to use that paper with the rest of this collection. I think it just didn't work for my specific needs. Not to say that it's not cute cloud paper and stuff. I think that I personally just needed a little bit more B-sides to be able to mix in with it. Down below, I just kind of, again, grabbed whichever patterns I still had left in a 12-inch width to be able to span a layout. And I actually had enough that I could have stretched this into a 2-page layout, but I don't like to make a 2-page layout if I only need a 1-page, if that makes any sense. The photos that I'm going to end up printing later, they're not the greatest photos. They're not this amazing story that I need to tell. It's more of just kind of like a daily life type thing. And I don't think I was planning on using maybe more than 4, possibly 5 images. And by making them smaller and fitting them on 1 page, that takes up less space in my album. So if it was something more meaningful or a bigger event or something that I had a lot more photos, I would have just stretched this same paper strip design into a 2nd page and, maybe cut out some more 3x4s and kind of mimicked that across, and then had 2 pages worth of photos. For me, though, it's just easier for me to crop them down to be smaller size photos and put them on a single page layout, and then save bigger events and more photo heavy stories that I want to tell into 2-page layouts. And I'm not surprised that after doing 20 double page layouts for the 6x6 paper pad class that I'm finding myself wanting to do single page layouts. I think that's kind of normal when you do the same thing long enough, you're kind of over it and you want to do something a little bit different. So again, I still have not printed out my photos at this point, but I am pretty set on this page design. So I went ahead and attached everything where it is now, because I know that open area is where I'm going to put my photos. I know that I'm not going to rearrange anything. So while I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and glue all of this down, and then all of this will have time to dry while I go and deal with finding my photos, editing them, deciding how I want to print them, go ahead and type up my journaling. I try to do all of the computer stuff in one sitting if I can. This is why a lot of times I will scribble like a quick sketch somewhere, because a lot of times I'll be typing up the journaling, thinking about my photos, editing my photos, cropping them, figuring out how I'm going to print them, and then that's kind of when a game plan presents itself, and so I will make myself a little sketch in that instance. I ended up just finding, this is not a template. This is what I would consider just a DIY photo collage. I just opened up a letter size document in Photoshop. I know that that's going to be 11 inches wide, and I just start cropping my photos. And a lot of times I'll turn on the grid feature so that I can actually see how much space I'm working with. In this instance, I had 5 photos that I wanted to use. I measured the distance that I had between the polka dot strip and then the title area. So I knew I had about 3 1/8 inches of space. So I made sure that I was cropping my photos to 3 1/8 inches, and then just kind of picked a width based on my photo. Some of the smaller ones, I think those might be like 1.5 by 1.5, because that would be 3 inches, and then you've got the 1/8 inch for a gutter. But the other 2, like the ones on the end, they're not the same width. It doesn't matter to me. I just want everything to kind of fit within the 11 inch space and the 3 1/8 inch height. And then I had kind of forgotten that my letter paper is 11 inches wide, but my layout is 12 inches wide. So I have kind of this open gap on the sides of my photo collage, and I thought about leaving it open. I don't think it looks bad leaving it blank there, but I'm going to end up going back to my scraps and cutting some pieces from that to fill in that gap. Oh boy, here we go. Okay, so while I was making this layout, I was participating in a like virtual scrapbooking thing, and one of the girls was being crowned queen of a certain challenge, and so they were presenting her with her crown, and it was like, if you had a headband, go grab a headband. I went and stole one from my daughter. I don't know what this is. It's like a little puffy pink things, but I forgot I had it on, and I forgot that I was like filming while I was listening to them. So just kind of ignore that. It's not my general go-to. My go-to lately is just a messy twisty bun. And, you know, see how many days you can go without washing it. But I saw that earlier when I was cutting down clips, and I was like, oh man, I forgot about the headband. And I was like, oh yeah, I borrowed it, thanks. But anyways, back to what I was talking about. I'm gonna go and find some scraps of a pattern that I haven't used, and I'm gonna fill in those spaces. And this is kind of what I would consider back 10, 12 years ago. I used to have these templates where the template itself was 12 inches wide, and then there was a bunch of different configurations of squares and rectangles and stuff within it, and you would lay it over your paper and your photos and like trace around it, and then when you put it all back together, it was kind of this pieced together design, and I think it was like color blocking or something along those lines. And this is kind of what it reminds me of. So I just decided to go ahead and fill in those edges because it made sense with the rest of the design for the layout. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go here. This is the last of the layouts that I have ready to go. I still want to try to get one more done and then film a wrap-up video before I kind of start another series. So with that, I'm going to say bye. And as always, thank you guys for spending some time with me.